everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. I'm very happy to have Rahan Jalil today as my guest. He is formerly at Simtech, where he was the SVP and GM of Cloud Security, which became the company's fastest growing team with triple digit growth. I know you can all appreciate that. Over 7 quarters, as well as an investor and mentor to multiple startups. He's now, in addition to being the founder, the president and CEO of Securiti. So let me just bring you forward, and thank you for joining us today.
And thank you so much for hosting. It's really a pleasure.
Terrific. So for those viewers who aren't familiar, can you explain a bit about Securiti and what services you provide?
Think of this way, is that the wave of AI, it requires unstructured and structured data and a good understanding of what it is and how to safely use it. The core charter for Securiti.ai is to how to enable the safe use of data in general, but also now very much so with AI. And that's what we do. We have an offering that we call a Data plus AI Command Center that gives you full visibility, understanding of what data you have, structured and unstructured both, what AI agents, AI models, AI capabilities you have, and how you can enable the safe use of it using what we call a graph engine under it. That's what we offer as a core value proposition.
Okay, so safe seems like something easier to say than is to do. I see that you've won a lot of industry and analyst awards, most innovative startup at RSA, top 25 machine learning startups at Forbes. Oh God, there's so many. Let me just pick another one. Cool vendor in data security by Gartner, and we could go on. So, as I said, easier to say than to do. Could you give an example of how you operate in an organization?
Yeah, if you go to an organization, typically you will see we have some of the largest organizations as our customers, whether it is in banking, whether it's in travel, whether it is in insurance or telecommunication and technology companies. They all have a very common opportunity and, of course, problem. All of a sudden, their unstructured data and regular data has become kind of the true value. The proprietary data is the gold
100%.
Right, for them, right? So they want to actually understand what data I have, particularly more and more focus on unstructured data, what data I have. And if I want to create derived value out of it, first I need to understand what it is, who has access to it, and are there any issues that inherently exist in this data that if I turn on AI on it, it'll multiply the issues that it's going to create, right?
Right.
And so generally, the organizations that we're seeing right now, they're in this journey of trying to basically first get a good understanding of the landscape and put these guardrails in place before we turn on things. I'll give you one example. If you want to simply even turn on Microsoft Copilot, very simple thing. You can go turn on by E5 license, turn on Microsoft Copilot. The adoption is very small. And why is that? The reason of adoption is small is that people want to first understand if they do turn it on, will people see certain information out of this mass amount of data that sits in a large company that they should not be seeing because underlying policies are just not configured right? Would it be that when people ask questions, they will get information from CEO's information or CFO or HR, they will be able to see somebody else's salary they shouldn't be seeing, right? They may be able to see customer information they shouldn't be seeing. So they want to make sure that the underlying data that's sitting there, that it, first of all, it is configured properly before they turn on. Even a simple thing to turn on is Microsoft Copilot, and a very powerful thing to actually have everything on it. And you can take this thing to now every company, every SaaS company, every application company is talking about AI agents, their AI capabilities. Very similar situation exists. They want to make sure that they are ready to actually turn it on in a safe fashion. And we're seeing there's a huge appetite out there to get your data controls right before you turn on the AI on top of it.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just thinking about your background and the landscape today. So I would imagine that the challenge or the opportunity that you saw was this need to be able to turn data on safely What was your sort of long-term and initial vision for the organization that you founded?
Yeah, when we started the organization, so some of us who were all kind of working at Simtech and running the cloud
When it
security
came
business
together.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is really, any startup is, the product of the teams, and it is
Right.
truly applicable here also. We saw a common theme there that people wanted to actually have more unified controls versus siloed controls around data. On one hand, they want to make sure the data is secure. They want privacy controls on data. They want to govern data properly. They want to understand the compliance requirements that large organizations have, that they are met. And there was a lot of piecemeal effort in the industry. There were tools doing a bit of privacy, there were tools doing a bit of security, there were tools doing a bit of governance, and some compliance tools. And if you do it separately, they all have a separate view of the data. They will have more siloed view. Security tools will look at just from security lens, and you have to do the analysis again from privacy lens. And these analysis may give you different results because they're different tools. And that was a huge amount of disparity and a bit of a mess of silos. The opportunity that we thought that exists here is that if we can unify and have a common source of truth using a graph engine, we call it data command graph, that every important information around data, people who have access to data, now of course AI agents, AI models that have access to data, regulations that are applicable to data, if we actually have in one place, in one unified graph view, then you can have security on it, visibility on it, and you can take controls. You can have privacy visibility on it from the lens of privacy or regulatory or governance lens. That's what that's the platform view that we actually had. And we embarked on the journey. Of course, you learn it along the way, and we've evolved the platform to what it is today. You always never start from where you end up if you're learning, if you have the mindset of learning. And that's what happened here also. We learned along the way how to evolve the platform as well as evolve our capabilities. But today, the way it exists is that it's based on common graph engine we call data command graph, and it gives you basically full visibility from different views on. So organizations, they don't have to deal with this mess of silos, and they actually have one common source of truth, and they can take actions. And now it's insanely more valuable. It just happened, I would say, last 1 or 2 years, that this level of control is now insanely valuable because it allows you to actually use your data very quickly because you feel good and safe. Now you're going to use it, essentially.
Right. Well, data integrity is key to everything today, right? And you're helping to provide that. You've had remarkable growth from everything I can see, including your ARR, which looks to me like you just hit hockey stick status, maybe working your way up there just a few years after launching. So I guess I'm curious, how do you, as a leader, scale a company so quickly and retain your focus on innovation? Because I imagine, or my experience is, there are all kinds of execution problems when you're growing that fast. We'll call them opportunities, but you also need to innovate in this space in particular.
It goes back to, I would say, people in the company. On one hand, of course, there has been a spirit of quick learning and quick addition to the platform. Right. In fact, within the product, you will see is that we invest in the platform from day one, and over time we evolved the platform also. But when we launched one thing on the platform, and we kept kind of adding on top in a manner that required the ability for our product teams and development teams to understand the market opportunity first, understand the reason why we're doing what we're doing, and embrace it and go fast. For any company, small or big, velocity really matters. Velocity has a direction, and velocity has speed in it. Both matter, right, inside it. And we're going to make mistakes. We made a bunch of mistakes where we did things the way we shouldn't be done, or went in some direction but tweaked it back to where we should be going. So, but the culture within the company has to embrace for that quick learning and embrace for that change. And actually, when you make mistakes, you leave it behind and you move forward. When you miss a shot, you don't sweat over it. You learn from it. You don't just keep sweating over it. You're going to miss a second shot also if you do the same. That culture has to be there, right? So it's okay to make mistakes, right? But don't make the same mistake 3 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then also on the organization on the non-product side, it has to scale, because as you start getting customers, you want to make sure that the customers are getting taken care of, from your customer success teams to customer support teams to your professional services team to your education teams to your technical teams, which are going to support those customers. You have to make sure that you're building that muscle, which in the beginning, you when you start a company, you don't have that,
Right.
but you have to build that muscle over time. And customer centricity has to be there. And it's always a balance, right? Because you're going to move fast, you're going to build things which may break things in customers' environments. But as the organization matures, you start paying a lot more attention to make sure the customers are taken care of. The customers are, when you're releasing things, that's one of the top things should be in your mind, to make sure it's not going to impact any customer. So you start balancing that. Initially, maybe you're running like crazy, and at some point you start making that as like a top priority to make sure your large enterprise customers are not going to get impacted. And how do you actually segment that you can still add new things into the mix? That's method you go through, which we went through. I think team has experience doing it before, and we bringing that in the mix. I won't say that we're perfect. I won't say that we are where we should be. No question, there's a lot more to learn and a lot more to improve. We're a 600-700 people company. As it grows to thousands of people, there's going to be more maturity needed, within our own organization.
So I just want to pull on one of those threads a bit. So you said at least some of your team came over with you, and you mentioned team again in these last remarks. How do you select your team? What do you prioritize in terms of skills? I mean, clearly there are technical skills, but typically the soft skills are the things that differentiate today.
I think it's a bit of a self-selection or mutual selection process, and one that I selected, like you mutually select your tribe in that sense, right? There's some people who like to work together, right? Or they have done some interesting things together. They want to maybe do it again in a better way. So I think it's a bit of a mutual selection process. Some people who like to work with each other. And similarly for me, I want to work with certain people who are really amazing, not just in the competence level, but also on how they work, how they actually build things, how they operate. So, and you basically, it's like you establish this relationship and friendships over time that it naturally kind of happens. We were lucky to actually have the tribe kind of that was together, and that tribe kind of decided that we're going to do something together again, right? So it wasn't one selected to the other, or I selected, or it was just like it kind of happens that way a little bit. And I think so. A lot of times, I think if you start that way, you can go fast because you already know strengths and weaknesses, style of working, the trust that sometimes take time to establish, and you're already established. And then you have to from my side, you really have to then work it in a way that it's worth it for everyone, right? So you actually have to be many of our leaders, including myself, have to be the role models in terms of how we go from tens of people to then hundreds and maybe hopefully over thousands of people over time, right? They become the role models, the anchors over time. But as you go forward, when you are bringing new team members that you may not have worked with before, so you're trying to establish the same kind of selection process, mutual selection process. You expose what you're looking for, and give them an opportunity to reject you if that's okay, because it's a mutual decision. When you're recruiting someone, hiring someone from our side. I'll tell you an example of a recent addition. We're trying to bring in a leader, an amazing new leader, in terms of what he'd done into leadership before. But we also want to make sure that we also understand that we're working or managing hundreds of people. This will be a smaller organization. Can you be more hands-on? So we literally created almost like a test to say, can you do this? And the purpose was not to test it. Purpose was to expose that this is what you're going to be doing. If you don't enjoy this, you're going to self-select yourself out. You're going to say, this is not what I do, sorry. And to my surprise, in this particular example that happened like a week and a half back, that person came back and within 24 hours nailed that technical challenge and presented it in a live setting. It showed me two things: that the doubt that was there, that somebody who can scale down come to this org. That was actually not an issue. The person has aspiration and willingness and the capability to do it, and understand this is what the person would be doing. So that way you can establish very upfront some kind of implicit relationship and trust and mutual selection that you can have. I think now, of course, you don't always get that right. As you know, you there also is very difficult to bring in a person from outside and just through the interview process do it right. And of course, we make mistakes. We've made mistakes over time.
Yeah. Oh, I love this idea of mutual selection, which of course is what it should be, but is not a term that I've heard used before. But of course, and you want to be as explicit as possible about, here's who we are, and here's, in your case, how we do things is as important as what we get done. And it just sounds like, maybe the most effective way to put together a high performance team is what you have described.
Yeah.
So the other thing that you said that I thought was really interesting is you're growing really fast. You're focused on both at this point in your journey, being able to be innovative in your space as well as taking care of your customers, in a way that the new innovations are not causing harm. Are there other leadership lessons or best practices beyond that, or the building of the team itself, that you could share with the audience in terms of sort of how you move things forward while experiencing this type of growth?
Yeah, I think so. At the end, it boils down to culture. It boils down to the culture. If you are successful in establishing like the unsaid habits of the organization, which are small things, just like human habits, organizations have their own habits, that how the organizations behave and the leaders by default behave in the organization. I think that's really the way to kind of scale, and of course, as you bring in new team members, you want to see if it's the average, you're not shifting the culture in a negative way. You would want to welcome in a positive way and change and all, because new people should bring in new good habits, organizational habits into the organization. So change is good, but as long as it's constructed in the right way. And what are some of the biggest things is, of course, for any innovative company, you have to have bias for action. You have to have a sense of direction, intuitively, where we're going, why we're going, and this is the right thing, and ability to tune it, and ability for team to understand that this is for good reasons, you're going to tune it over time. And also, the leaders, in a good organization, leaders are role models. They're not just talkers. They know their area very, very well, and they can lead their way. They can be the role models, inspiring to their functions that they're leading, and to the rest of the organization, not leading that. And also the openness to the ideas from other teams within the organization, where you can have disagreements, but it's done in a very respectful way, and it's very important. Certain companies and kind of promote disagreement, and it doesn't matter whatever style. I think at least what we aspire to do is that there are always going to be ideas. There are always going to be things people will think differently, because they're seeing the problem from a different lens. But we should come into a room, and it's done in a way that everyone feels like heard, or everyone feels like respected, right? Not just to actually have a cohesion, just for the sake of cohesion, but because that's the way nobody would step back and feel like they are disrespected along the way. I think we want to create certain of those things as a culture of the organization, and so it becomes natural habits. It's not by force, it's not by process. It's just like how people behave, and it's kind of transparent in some fashion. It's like in the air, so to speak, right? And I think that's the aspiration, of course. And over time, of course, as you grow, things shift, and you try to bring it back, or things shift already in a good way. And that's part of our leadership teams, kind of a joint responsibility to actually maintain the good culture in the organization, if it has to continue to grow and continue to innovate.
Yeah, several things there I just want to underline. And the first is, of course, your culture will shift really with every person you bring in. There's a a slight shift because they bring their experiences, but this core of having teammates that are easy to respect and a process that is respectful of everyone, which I think all management teams should be able to have a good fight, but in fact, it's really important, but they have to be able to do it in a way that's respectful to the people that are on the team. I wanted to turn also just a moment to sort of the future of the organization. So I know you've been creating tools that seem to be sort of on the leading edge in your space in terms of market trends. Sort of what's next for the organization in terms of solutions for supporting enterprises?
It's a great question. I think, interestingly, the area we are in, Karen, right now, it is one of the most, I would say, like a fast-moving area. Because now you probably have heard everyone's talking about AI agents. They want to do something with AI agents. And we clearly see it. Like AI tools, every SaaS app will have some AI tools. So the architecture of the enterprise apps and the architecture of how people want to utilize the unstructured and structured data is fast evolving. It's fast getting to more and more automation. But for us, it's important to play an important role. And we are very lucky to be actually in the position that layer of security, governance, and that you need to have so that agents can operate and AI tools and utilities can operate in a safe manner. We have a role to play and a very important role to play. And of course, many other things are needed. This is not the only thing that is needed to actually do. But we feel that we have to basically play more and more central role into that the mix also along the way, right? So, but the way the platform is built with using like a data command graph, which has good visibility of AI agents, AI utilities, the data and entitlements, and this, that, and all, it basically makes it more relevant to us to basically go deeper and more, so we can offer more value to enable AI use case. That's where we see more important value we can create for our customers, and that's where we already have been investing in last couple of years.
Great, thank you for that. I just had a couple more questions about leadership, and then I'll let you go. I'm particularly interested in decision making with leaders, and you mentioned bias for action. I think there's this tension between bias for action and comfort with ambiguity, and particularly in senior leadership positions in tech where things are fast moving. I think the tension can be great. How do you deal with decision making and ambiguity? And it's the 49-51 decisions we're trying to make. How do you deal with that, and what's your decision making process?
I think so. All decisions are not equal, right? So there are certain decisions you can make and you can adjust, right? And it won't be detrimental. You will waste time, maybe. You may not waste time because you may be wasting time on, analysis, frozen paralysis, because you're not doing anything, right? So I would say there is a whole set of energy that you can create, and your brain cells can go, you can start acting because you discovered that this decision was not right. You would have never discovered if you didn't take that few steps forward to actually do something, and then you can basically tune it along the way. So there are certain decisions you want to make fast, move forward, make a change and keep going, kind of in that iterative mode along the way. Again, doing it in a way that you don't hurt your customers, because your customers should not, what you're doing, it should not be seen until you actually can give it to your customers in a way that actually doesn't impact them. So I think that's very important. There are certain decisions you should take your time, and it's okay to basically procrastinate a little bit on those decisions because they are actually critical decisions and they're not easy to change later on. So I think that's the way, at least I think through it, that you'd want to make quick decisions, certain things, and some things you take your time because they're difficult to rewind.
Yeah, terrific. I think it's important to think about when the decision has to be made and make it then, as opposed to just making the decision because you can. I think sometimes we let good options go by because there's so many decisions to be made. It just feels good to mark one off the list and move on to the next. So it sounds like a very considered process that you have. Terrific. And then my last question, Rahan, is about you specifically. My consulting business has the logo up and to the right because that's the spot on the 2x2 matrix where we always want to be. And clearly your security is there in many matrices. But about you specifically, was there a moment in your career when you knew that you were moving up and to the right, that you knew that you would be successful as a leader?
Honestly, I never knew I never knew in that sense. But as there was no question about the aspiration that you would want to do things that you want to excel. Either you do those things and excel, or you just don't do it, right? And in technology, it's even more true because there is no like fifth, sixth player. Either you're on the top, one or maybe two, and that's it. And if you don't have that aspiration, technology often is not going to be a great choice. Like you can do that, open a restaurant. There could be thousands of them. You can still be successful. Open a different business, right? But if you aspire to build something in technology, which I always did from a very early age, I want to build things, but then also had a clear aspiration that you want to do it the best way as possible and excel in it. And I think I'm very lucky that I'm working with a team that have the very similar mindset. They want to do things which are creating value at the edge. And it's a lot of fun, Karen. It's a lot of fun to be working with such a team.
Yeah. Well, you have aligned purpose as well as aligned vision. So congratulations on all your success and the success of your team, and wishing you all the best to come. Thanks for time with us today.
Thank you so very much. Really enjoyed the questions. Very insightful. Thanks a lot.